I genuinely believe this might be one of the most important videos you'll ever watch about learning English. Have you ever caught yourself saying, I'd like to speak English fluently, but I don't have a teacher? Or maybe I cannot afford expensive courses. Or perhaps I start when I find the true or the right tutor. If that sounds familiar, let me challenge that for a moment. Because the truth is, a teacher can help, can guide you or save time. But a teacher is not the reason people become fluent. In fact, if we look at some of the most successful language learners in the world, many of them spend hundreds times thousands of hours learning independently. Not because they had to, because they understood something important. Fluency isn't created in the classrooms. Actually, it's created in your daily habits. Think about it. Most people spend 1 or 2 hours a week in lesson, but they spend the other 166 hours of the week living their lives. And that's where real progress happens. So, if you have been waiting the perfect teacher, the perfect course, or the perfect moment to start learning seriously, this video might completely change the way you think about language learning. Because today I'm going to show you exactly how to teach yourself English effectively, even if you're learning alone without teacher. So we'll cover pronunciation, listening, vocabulary, grammar, speaking, everything you need to start alone. So let's get into that. The biggest mistake language learners do is they saying studying English and learning English are the same. They are not. And understanding this distraction can save years of frustration. So let me explain. Imagine someone who spent 6 months reading books about swimming. They memorize every technique, they know how to move their arms, they understand breathing patterns, they can explain swimming perfectly. Now, imagine that same person standing next to someone who's been in the water 3 times a week for 6 months. Who do you think will swim better? Exactly, because skills are built through practice, not information, not studying. So language works exactly the same way. Many learners collect information, grammar rules, vocabulary lists, study books, YouTube videos, but they actually don't spend enough time using the language. As a result, they know a lot about English, but they struggle when they communicate in English. And those are two very different things. Fluency isn't knowledge. Fluency is performance. Yeah. You do not become fluent because you have studied the language. You become fluent because you have used the language repeatedly. And the goal isn't to know English. The goal is to practice English. And once you understand that, everything changes. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful concepts in the language, which is immersion. When people hear the word immersion, they often imagine moving to London or Manchester. And that would be actually, that would certainly help. But it's not the only way. In today's world, you can create an English-speaking environment without leaving your home or your house. Your phone can become your classroom, your laptop, your social media also. Most people spend hours every day on social media. The question isn't whether you are consuming content. The question is what language is that content in? If you're spending 2 hours scrolling through videos every evening, imagine replacing just 30 minutes of that English content without adding any extra study. You can switch your phone to English. You can follow English speaking creators, listen to English podcasts during your day, read articles before bed. The goal is not to study every minute. The goal is exposure, because the more your brain sees English, the more familiar English becomes. And familiarity is one of the foundations of fluency. The language you surround yourself with becomes the language you think in. And now I want to move to very important part, which is relating to pronunciation and phonetics. Actually, I want to ask you a question at this part. Have you ever learned a new word, felt confident using it, and then native speaker looked confused when you said it? That's happened to almost every learner. And the problem is not the vocabulary, it's the pronunciation. This is where phonetics becomes incredibly useful. And phonetics is the relationship between letters and sounds. It helps understand how English pronunciation actually works. To be honest, English spelling isn't exactly famous for being logical. For example, this word, when I say though, throw, thought, okay, they look similar, but their pronunciation completely different. The pronunciation is a skill, and skills can be trained. One of the most effective techniques called shadowing. Let me tell you how shadowing works. Choose a short video from a native speaker. Listen to one sentence, then pause, after that repeat. Not just the words, copy everything. Copy the rhythm, the speed, copy everything, the emotions, everything. Then move to the next sentence. What you are doing is training your mouth, your tongue, ears, brain, and let them work together. And over time, you'll begin to sound more natural. And now here is something many learners actually don't realize. Native speakers do not speak word by word. They connect words together. For example, they don't say, what do you want to do? They say, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Okay? Not because they are lazy, okay? Because connected speech is natural, like in Arabic. This is why listening can feel difficult at the beginning. You're expecting separate words, but native speakers produce connected words. And that's why listening and pronunciation should be always studied together. The better your listening become, the better your pronunciation becomes actually. The better your pronunciation becomes, the easier listening becomes. They are two sides of one same kind. Another important concept is stress. It's very important to focus on the stress. It's in the beginning of the word or at the end of the word. Coming to the challenging part, which is vocabulary. Because if I ask most of learners what they are doing to improve their English, they will say, I'm memorizing words. And while that sounds productive, it's often one of the least effective approaches. Imagine you decide now to learn 50 new words today. You write them down in the notebook and you translate them, memorize them, then you feel great. Wow. Okay? Then 3 weeks later, someone asks you a simple question in English. Those 50 words have disappeared. Sound familiar, right? That's because our brains are designed to remember useful information, not random information. A word without context is difficult to remember. A word connected to a situation, a story, or emotion is much easier to retain. For example, don't learn the word appointment alone. Learn, I've got a doctor appointment tomorrow. Now, you're learning the language the way it's actually used. Many learners study individual words. Native speakers don't think individual words. They think in chunks. For example, we don't say usually decision. We say make decision. We don't say effort. We say make an effort. And we don't say usually attention. We say pay attention. Okay? These combinations are called collocations. And learning collocation can dramatically improve your fluency because you're no longer building every sentence from scratch. You're collecting ready-made pieces of language. Okay? It's like building with complete Lego blocks, for example. And don't learn words, learn how words live together. Going to listening now. When we come to listening, I need to mention babies spend months listening before they ever say the first word. Yet adults learners often try to speak before they have spent enough time listening. Imagine trying to play a song on the piano when you have never actually heard the song. It would be nearly impossible, right? So language works the same way. Your brain needs examples, lots of examples, okay? This where a concept called comprehensible input becomes important. In simple terms, it means listening to material that's challenging but still understandable. Many learners make one of the most mistakes. They listen to content that's far too easy. They understand everything, which feels comfortable. But little growth happens actually in this case. And also some of them, they jump straight into advanced films, fast podcasts, and complex interviews. And they understand almost nothing, which feels discouraging, okay? The sweet spot is somewhere in the middle. You should understand enough to follow the main message while still encouraging unfamiliar language, okay? Think around 70 to 80% comprehensions. Let me just give you the strategy of listening. Listen once without subtitle, okay? Don't pause, just listen. Next, listen again with subtitles and listen one final time without subtitles. You'll be amazed at how much more you understand. Most people only listen once, but successful learners listen multiple times because every repetition trains the brain. And here's something else. Do not just listen actively, listen passively too. Listen to audiobook while cleaning, for example, or have English in the background while doing simple tasks. Passive listening will not replace focused study, but it increases exposure dramatically. And exposure matters, as I told you. Exposure matters a lot. Now, let's see what's the excuse I hear it often. I don't have anyone to speak English with. Speaking is a skill, can be practiced alone. Think about a football player. Do they only practice during the matches? Of course not, okay? They train independently. They repeat drills. Language learners can do exactly the same thing. And one of the easiest methods is self-talk. Yes, I know. Talking to yourself sounds slightly strange, but it works. Narrate your day, for example. Describe what you are doing. Explain your plans. Talk about your opinions. These sample exercises force your brain to produce language, and production creates progress. Another excellent strategy is recording yourself. Most learners avoid this because nobody enjoys hearing their own voice, actually. Let's be honest, the first recording is usually painful, okay? But that's exactly why it's useful. When you record yourself, you notice hesitation. You notice grammar mistakes, maybe. You're suddenly able to observe your English objectively. Let me give you another useful habit. Start thinking in English. When you are choosing a food, for example, when you are planning for your weekend, when you are waiting in somewhere, and instead of translating from your native language, try forming simple thoughts directly in English. This trains your brain to access English more quickly. And speed is one of the key ingredients of fluency. Remember, fluent speakers are not translating quickly. They are thinking directly in the language. That's the goal. Okay? I need to have some coffee. Okay, now let's talk about grammar. We are not going back to school. Grammar is important, very important, but many learners give grammar far more power than it deserves. Some learners believe if I master grammar rule, I'll become fluent. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. I've met many learners who could explain advanced grammar perfectly, yet struggled to hold a basic conversation. And why? Because knowing rules and using rules are completely different things or different skills. For example, the driving. Think about driving. You can memorize every traffic regulation in the country. That doesn't automatically make you a good driver. Eventually, you have to get behind the wheel. Grammar works exactly the same. Learn the rule, okay? Then immediately use it. For example, if you are studying the present perfect, do not stop after reading the explanation. Do not pause. Create 10 personal sentences at least. Say them aloud. Write them down. Use them in conversation. Turn knowledge into action. Most of students trying to learn grammar at once, and the result is confusion. Okay? Instead, focus on the structures you use most often. I mean present simple, past simple, future forms, questions, conditionals, okay? Comparatives or comparisons. Master the essentials first, because communication doesn't require perfect grammar. It requires understandable grammar. Grammar should support communication, not prevent it. And if you're waiting until your grammar is perfect before speaking, you'll be waiting forever, by the way, okay? Because even native speakers make grammar mistakes. The goal isn't perfection, the goal communication. And communication is what eventually improves grammar. The more you read, listen, speak, and write, the more grammar patterns becomes automatic. Now, before we finish, I want to talk about something that completely changed language learning forever. It's using AI. Lots of people think AI is cheating. I completely disagree. If you had a private language tutor available 24 hours a day, who never gets tired, never judges you, and answer every question you ask, wouldn't you use that? For example, if you have an interview, you can ask the ChatGPT and say, act as an interviewer and ask me difficult questions to practice me on the interview. If you are struggling with pronunciation, you can say, explain how to pronounce this word like native speakers. The learners who progress fastest today are not necessarily the smartest. They are the ones who know how to use technology effectively. And AI will never replace your effort, by the way, but it can multiply it. At the end of my video, let me mention some mistakes students made. Because honestly, most of people don't fail because they are bad language learners. They fail because they follow the wrong approach. So, mistake number 1, studying too much grammar and not enough input. Some learners spend months memorizing rules, past perfect, past simple, present perfect. And yet they still struggle to understand simple conversation. Why? Because languages are acquired through exposure. Mistake number 2. They are trying to understand every single word in the conversation. And this is one of the fastest ways to kill motivation. Native speakers don't understand every word they hear either. Good learners focus on understanding the main message first. Then they gradually fill in the gaps. Next mistake. Some students, they don't want to speak till they become fluent. The practice comes first. Remember, confidence comes later. Next mistake. Being inconsistent. Some people study 5 hours on Saturday, then nothing for the next 6 days. Consistency always beats intensity. 30 minutes every day is far more powerful than 5 hours once a week. Next mistake. Comparing yourself to others. Language learning is not a race. Some people learn faster. Some people learn slower. Some have more free time. Some started years earlier. The only comparison that matters is who you were yesterday. Now, I want to give you a simple 90-day challenge because I truly believe 90 days can change everything. For the next 90 days, listen to English every single day, even if it's only 15 minutes. Read every day, speak every day, learn 5 useful phrases every day, not words. Record yourself speaking once every week and save those recordings. Trust me. When you listen to your first recording and compare it to your recordings after 90 days, you'll be shocked. Don't focus on fluency for 90 days, on fluency only on these 90 days. Focus on consistency. Fluency is the result. Consistency is the cause. If you focus on the cause, the result will eventually take care of itself. Finally, I want to leave you with one thought. A lot of people believe that language learning is about talent. I don't. I've seen too many learners, ordinary people, normal people, become extraordinary speakers. Not because they were gifted. Maybe they had expensive courses. They live abroad. No, they refused to quit. The truth is that every fluent speaker was once a beginner. Every confident speaker once felt embarrassed. The difference is that they kept going. You simply need a system, consistency, and patience. And if you spend the next few months doing what most people are unwilling to do, you'll soon be able to do what most people cannot do. So one day you'll watch a movie without subtitles. One day you'll hold a conversation without translating. Good luck. Keep learning. And I'll see you in another video. Bye.